This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Welcome everybody, you are tuned in to another episode of the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. This is episode 115 and I am your host Lewis. Today I am joined by my co-host Lawrence, or Lozz as we in the community endearingly refer to him as. How are you doing today, Lozz?
Yeah, I'm trying to stay chipper, as I was just explaining to you. I'm waiting and watching as my football team almost inevitably gets relegated this year. So it's nice to be distracted by something Dreamcast,
Yes.
which is more cheery.
Yeah. Yeah. How do your team represent on Dreamcast football games, Lozz? Is that a thing? Are they represented faithfully? Or?
Yeah, very faithfully, especially in Giant Killers. I enjoyed Kev's Giant Killer videos.
That was great. Yeah. I recommend people check that out as well. Kev's Giant Killers Let's Play on YouTube on our channel. So yeah, check that out. Today we have a special guest here with us. He crossed the radar of the Dreamcast Junkyard all the way back in 2016, and he's now here with us to tell us about his Kickstarter for his Dreamcast indie game that is a top-down 3D dungeon crawler called HarleQuest. Please welcome Ross Kilgariff.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We're really excited about the Kickstarter. So, it's great to have you on to chat all about that. But before we get to that, keen listeners know that we always like to start these episodes off with some kind of weird question. And as the weather's been nice recently, I want you to imagine right now, out your window, the ice cream van pulls up outside. It's got its music playing. Although that's a bit weird because it's like past 8, but yeah. Anyway, first up, I just want to ask Ross, what are you getting from that ice cream van? Oh,
that would be the double scoop nugget, definitely.
What is that? I've not heard of that one.
So it's like a wafer sandwich with 2 scoops of ice cream in the middle.
Oh, okay, nice. That sounds good. What about you, Lozz? What are you getting?
Well, I'm reaching into my bulging wallet and pulling out, one of the many £5 notes, crisp £5 notes I have there, and and I would have to go with a toffee crumble, which is something I couldn't think of the name of for a long time today, and I was doing some very weird Google searches.
Okay.
And I started to think, was this something I just dreamed up? Because it's I haven't had one since I was a kid down in Devon or something. But no, it exists, and it's like a feast, but more toffee-ish.
Oh yeah, I've googled it. I'm seeing it. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that does look good.
I feel like it prefigured the whole kind of salted caramel kind of phase we're in now. This is that, but for like the old school heads. It's good.
Yeah.
And Lewis, we're aching to hear, what are you going to buy with all that money?
Yeah, I feel like there's a stage in everyone's life where when you're making a food purchase one day, instead of just being like, I'm just going to have the small option, you overload and order loads of stuff. And then after that, you can't go back. So one day I ordered a double cone with double whippy and double flakes, and I was like, I can't have just a normal one now. So that would probably be my choice, but I'd probably have rainbow sprinkles to appease the child in me as well, because that's always good.
Oh, that sounds incredible. Can I change mine?
Yeah, of course.
I'll just have one of those too.
But I will say there was one that actually stuck in my mind as well. Is I think it was called the oyster. Is it an oyster? It looks like an oyster, but it's like a cone that it's got marshmallow in it, and you put ice cream inside it. Those are pretty banging as well. But yeah, it's. I feel like you'd have to get the right ice cream van, because if you like went up and was like, "Can I have an oyster?" they'd probably be a bit confused. But yeah, so okay, cool. That's what we'd be having. And actually, I'm kind of sad about this question, because now I wish there was an ice cream van outside. We kind of messed ourselves up there, because we're going to be hungry for the rest of this podcast. So yeah. But anyway, the Dreamcast Junkyard founder, Tom Charnock, our Lord and Saviour, covered Dungeon Ross a long time ago on the blog now, I suppose. Was it 2016, 2017?
Yeah.
For some context to the listeners, Dungeon Ross was the game that eventually would go on to become HarleQuest. And I just wondered if you'd take us back to 2016 and tell us all about Dungeon Ross.
Sure. So Dungeon Ross was a demo that me and Alistair Lowe put together for the Global Game Jam. So that's where a whole bunch of game developers get together for a weekend, and you have a theme to work with, and you have to make some kind of a game in mostly 2 days. You can kind of go for 3 days if you don't get much sleep. And we decided that we wanted to do something a bit different. So usually you would take a game engine like Unity or Unreal Engine, and you'd put together a gameplay prototype for something rapidly, and just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, just put something together that looks good, that plays good. And I thought this year I wanted to try something a little different. So we tried to make a dungeon crawler for the Dreamcast. That involved making a game engine from scratch. And I call it a game engine. It was very hacked together, but just to get things up and running. And we had a top-down dungeon crawler with Ali and myself as the characters in the game.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So he did 3D models of us just because we didn't have a good idea of what the theme of the game was going to be. It was mostly a tech demo. But yeah, putting that together it's kind of a blur because we had to get it all done so quickly.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, we're pretty happy with what we had. And then I think it was a few weeks later, I sent Tom the updated build where we'd fixed a few bits and pieces as well.
And Ross, did you already know Alistair by that point? Or did you just happen to come across each other at the jam?
Yeah. We'd known each other for a long time. So we first met at work. So we worked at the same studio, Ninja Kiwi.
Cool.
And
yeah.
I'm a programmer and he's an artist. And after a number of years, we started up a local makerspace, like a community workshop where people could use the 3D printers and the laser cutter. So we both voluntarily ran that for a number of years. And that was actually the site where we had the game jam as well. So we were running the game jam from the makerspace. And just as well, because halfway through, my Dreamcast controller stopped working and I had to reach for a screwdriver and a desk light and open it up and actually repair the Dreamcast while I was working on the demo. So it was absolutely crazy.
And so presumably both of you had already knew that you had a shared interest in the Dreamcast. And because I can imagine that if you go into a game jam with someone and they don't know that, and you just proposition them that you're going to work on a Dreamcast, they might find it a little bit wacky.
Yeah, so a few months before I'd been tinkering with the Dreamcast just to learn the platform. I'd been reading up on things and running some very basic sample code on it. And anytime I got something running, I'd send him a screenshot and say, look, I got this working. So he knew I was excited about it already. And he graciously agreed to work on it with me. But the thing with Ali is he's so fast when he puts together 3D models and animations that he was able to work on, I think, two or three other games as well as Dungeon Ross. So he didn't feel like it was too much of a block to his creativity to wait for me to finish my code. He'd just jump onto another project and contribute there. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
Did you have the Dreamcast growing up, or was it new to you back then?
Yeah, it was new to me back then. So the neighbour next door, one of my friends, had a Dreamcast. And I think this was after it was already discontinued. Mm-hmm. But it was always this kind of enticing, like, other system. You know, he was the only person I knew who had it. And so in my mind, it always kind of stayed as this other thing, this other opportunity. It's a bit different. But when the GameCube came around, that was my world. As soon as I got my hands on that, for a number of years, that was the only console I cared about.
It is a good system. I'm allowed to say that as I am in control of this podcast. And yeah, the GameCube is awesome. But yeah, so after that, you went on to Port Flea and then Tapeworm Disco Puzzle.
Yep.
Was there something in that process that inspired you to think, why don't I revisit Dungeon Ross? Like, was there something that clicked during that process?
Yeah, definitely. So Dungeon Ross was something I'd come back to every so often, and I'd optimize some code or add a new feature, but it was just this kind of back burner hobby project. But when I'd worked on Tapeworm and Flea, getting everything up and running and then seeing Wave Game Studios do the release for Flea, it was this sense of there is actually a market for new Dreamcast games. I had no idea about that when I'd been working on Dungeon Ross. It was just a hobby. But to see that people are really enthusiastic and that the sales were reasonably good, I thought, okay, there's probably scope to do something creative that is from my own design and a game that I'd love to work on. And I thought, well, what would that game look like? Would it be Dungeon Ross? Would it be something else? And then after a couple kind of false starts with different ideas and just doing loads of different designs on the backs of napkins and thinking about things, I thought HarleQuest is a really cool idea, and I really liked the name as well. Like once I came up with the name and the main character, the rest of it kind of came naturally.
And I mean, so it's been quite a few years in gestation then, Ross.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point did you decide, okay, I want to take this to the next level and get this out as a kind of full commercial release? Was that a relatively recent decision?
Yeah, so that was about halfway through last year that I thought quite seriously, yeah, we should figure out how to do this. The idea of running a Kickstarter, I actually came up with that plan quite early on. So on my Twitch streams, I've been just doing development on the game on stream, and I'd have a little countdown timer. And I remember at the time it was maybe 130 days until the Kickstarter. I thought that was quite funny because anyone coming on would be like, all right, that's quite a while. But it at least let people know that I had a kind of plan to release it. So yeah, the idea to do the Kickstarter back then was kind of this almost abstract idea, and now it's very, very real. So it's funny how that changes over time. Your perception of what you're doing changes as you realize there's a real community of people actually willing to put their money into this project. It's really, really cool.
Was it the case that before you got to the Kickstarter, you wanted to have the game at a certain stage before you launched the Kickstarter? Because obviously in the past, there have been some Kickstarters launched, and we won't name names, but have maybe jumped the gun a bit and have launched and have been really ambitious, but then haven't gotten anywhere. It seems here that you already had HarleQuest at a certain level of development before going into the Kickstarter. Was that something deliberate?
Yeah, definitely. I think that being able to prove what you've got so far is really important, and I didn't want to do a Kickstarter until we had something of a demo that people could actually run on their systems and get that out to people and have like real videos of gameplay and really just to do everything in a really transparent, open way and say, look, this is where we are just now. It's not finished yet, but this should give you an idea of where we're going. And the last thing I would want is to give people a false impression of how far along we are or what our plans are. So just want to be really direct and open with people.
Yeah, I think that the game, in development kind of speaks for itself. I mean, you've been sharing a lot on Twitter, and every time you put up a clip of the gameplay, it's really impressive stuff. Just before we talk about the Kickstarter, the various aspects of it, I don't know if any of you are familiar with an interviewer called Nardwar, but he has that question where he's like, why should the people care about the artist? And so what is HarleQuest all about? I don't know if you could give kind of an elevator pitch to the listeners out there. Obviously, it doesn't have to be the length of an elevator ride. You take as long as you want. You tell us everything you want to tell us.
Yeah, so HarleQuest is a new 3D dungeon crawler for the Dreamcast and the PC, in which the player takes control of Etienne the Jester, who's been thrown into the dungeon after insulting the king, and he has to make his daring escape and maybe get some revenge on the king along the way. And it has 2-player co-op, and I love the idea of couch co-op being a big part of the experience, and different people playing, being able to teach each other how to play the game. So if you've got one experienced player and one less experienced player, they'll be able to actually show the other person. I think that's like when we're going to OLL soon, I'm going to be on hand to play co-op with people and like show them the ropes. So that'll be really good.
Yeah. I mean, couch co-op and couch split screen was like a big thing during the Dreamcast era. And, you know, as you mentioned before, like GameCube was big for that as well. So it's like, I feel like having that kind of feature in there really does ground it in that era of games that we love, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
The couch co-op aspect is something that really interests me as well, because I think aside from playing my Dreamcast online, I think that's like some of the most enjoyable moments are where I've been playing in person with someone. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's a really great looking game, like the aesthetic of it, the kind of stylized characters. I just wanted to ask as well, like, I think you mentioned games like Medieval on the Kickstarter. Just like, what was the kind of inspiration behind kind of the aesthetic and the style of the game, like the character design? Like, is that influenced by games from the past, like that you enjoyed?
Yeah, definitely. So there's definitely some Medieval and some Gauntlet and some Zelda. And I think that a whole bunch of games I've played over the years have all inspired me indirectly. And as I'm working on it, I'll think, oh, this would be really cool. What if the skeletons jump away when you attack them? Wait, have I seen that before? Oh yeah, that's in Zelda. Okay, cool. Very much like that. But the aesthetic of the world kind of comes from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, particularly the Court of Miracles scene where Clopin the Jester has the protagonists kind of held up and hanging. And it's this very kind of tense, dark, but still quite like jovial, comical scene. And that vibe was what I sent to the video of that was what I sent to Alistair for him to do the first versions of the models, just to say, look, I think I want it to feel like this, and he did a really good job with that.
And so Alistair is he involved quite heavily in the project, in doing the artwork?
Yes, yeah, he's done, I think, probably like 80% of the 3D models and the assets so far.
Oh, wow.
I've done a little bit, and we've had a couple commissions from people like in different parts of the world to make new models and to help with things, because Ali's really busy a lot of the time, so it helps to have a few extra pairs of hands.
Yeah, and I suppose with the Kickstarter, if you're able to meet your goals on Kickstarter, that might help out with that side of things as well. If you want to involve other folks in the project.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think the biggest benefit will be to be able to get more creative input on some of the later levels, to see what some of the different bosses could be, maybe even get some gameplay ideas from people who are coming in to help as well. So there'll be a lot of good creative input.
One thing I wanted to ask as well, Ross, was about the kind of 3D visuals of the game. They're really striking, when you consider the dozens and dozens of indie releases on the Dreamcast. And there's been some really stellar ones, but it's quite rare that you actually get something that's 3D. It's mostly 2D. So, I mean, there's been some exceptions recently, like Xenocider, for example. Why is that? Is it a lot more complex to develop a game for the Dreamcast that's in 3D? Is it a lot more labor intensive?
I mean, that's a really good question. My experience has definitely been more in 3D than in 2D. Ultimately, like my day job, there's a lot of 2D. We've kind of recently moved to 3D games, but back when I was a teenager, I was very, very into 3D. So I'd make my own 3D engines and try different concepts and things. And now I feel like I'm just naturally, that's where I wanted to go with it. So when I picked up the Dreamcast, the first thing I wanted to do was make 3D games like the games from back in the day. I thought about like adventure games and even games from other platforms. But, if you look at Gauntlet Legacy or like Power Stone or something like that, that kind of top-down 3D, vibrant colors. Just kind of seemed a very natural fit for the platform. I think that if you're a developer wanting to target retro systems, it makes a lot of sense to go for 2D, because then you can actually cast a wider net and you can make games for, the NES, the SNES, and the Mega Drive Genesis. And as you can see with like a Xenocrisis, they did a really good job making a solid game for loads of different platforms. And I saw that went on to N64 and GameCube recently too.
Yeah.
And, nothing bad about 2D games. You can do a fantastic job. But I definitely thought that 3D was the most interesting thing for me to do anyway.
The music for the game, are you handling the composing, writing of that yourself as well?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
That's,
wow.
A hobby of mine is doing the music side. And so I've basically just downloaded a big orchestral pack into Ableton, and I've just been playing around and just seeing what I can do. But it's one of the best things to get a break from coding, is just to do something totally different.
Yeah,
it just helps keep the game fresh. And if I'm getting blocked on something that I'm trying to get done, I can just jump over to music, or I can go over to 3D modeling or animation, and just really get that full experience of like making this game. So it's a lot of fun to work on.
That's really interesting. Like I can imagine that it's quite useful to be able to produce that music yourself, because you kind of have an idea of what you want for a specific bit, I guess. Like you're like, yeah, I need this kind of music for this level or whatever.
Yeah, it's a great feedback loop. If you're halfway through making something and you think, oh, the music doesn't quite fit there, you can just jump out and fix it and then come back in. You don't have to wait for someone, let's say in another department or a subcontractor to go and fix it for you. You can just do it yourself.
It does sound like a lot of fun having that kind of variety, because it's one of the things that the people often complain about in their kind of regular day jobs, is a lot of the time you can end up doing the same things over and over. So yeah, it's great to have that kind of variety.
Well, so I suppose let's just go full on into the Kickstarter then. So the Kickstarter launched on April Fool's Day, which is obviously perfect. I absolutely love that. I mean, we love a clever release date here. I mean, of course, you've got 9/9/99, for example. But yeah, so you launched this on April Fool's Day with a goal of £11,250. I think from the offset, there was a lot of great stuff to unpack here. I spent that morning just going through it, and I put an article up on the blog discussing it all. You have Wave involved, which we mentioned earlier, who are pretty much kind of getting into being a hallmark for quality Dreamcast releases, and they're handling the physical editions for HarleQuest. You've got the options of European blue, US white, and Japanese orange theming, and then there's also the option of a upgrade to the original PAL case, which is pretty awesome. So that I suppose speaking of the soundtrack, when you put the Wave release into a CD player, if we still have those, or a computer, or a Dreamcast. See, that's the place you should be putting the CD. And if you go to the music player, you can listen to your tunes, right? So that'll be really cool.
Yep.
So what's been the process with Wave? I imagine they've helped you quite a lot.
So like Wave's role with HarleQuest is mostly as a distributor and handling like the physical production side of things. Basically, they came up to Scotland for an event, and they were meeting with Alistair, and I got to meet them too. And they showed me a physical copy of Intrepid Izzy, and just to give me an idea of the quality of the work that they produce, and like so I could see the inlays and the manuals and everything. And I already knew from Flea kind of what they would do, but just from talking to them and knowing that, like, their attention to detail with everything, I thought, yeah, this is definitely the level of quality that I want to go with. And I ended up buying that copy from them of Intrepid Izzy as well, because I actually hadn't bought a copy yet. And,
it's a good game, yeah.
It's a really good game. It's fantastic. And I love just the fact that they're very professional. They are... The feeling of legitimacy from what they make is inspiring. Like, I think before I saw them, I thought that everything from the Dreamcast scene would be homebrew. It would be kind of like I made this in my bedroom and I've not really put the level of polish into it necessarily. But seeing companies like Wave, it's definitely at another level now. So that inspired me, and it let me trust them, knowing that I could just leave that side of things in their hands. Like, they do properly pressed CD-ROMs. They can handle the production quantity. They can handle the shipping to everywhere. And any questions I've had about, okay, can we do the metallic printed inlay for the HarleQuest Collector's Edition? Dan was able to give me really good responses. So I'd strongly recommend going with Wave if you're anyone out there who's working on an indie game.
I suppose the advantage is there's a lot of folks out there who are really damn good programmers and developers, but the distribution side of things and marketing and the like is a whole another different world. Because the indie scene's kind of got to a stage now where it's kind of quite mature, and there's been people releasing indie games for the Dreamcast for like 20 years or more, and there's been some really good games that I think have really struggled, and it's probably because although the developers did a very good job at developing the game, they just didn't have the kind of strategy for distribution and marketing and the like. So I'm certain that Wave will do a good job for you. But is it the case that the Kickstarter then is I suppose the Kickstarter helps underwrite some of the risk because before you dive into kind of taking time off work and putting all these resources into it, you can kind of ensure that there's at least a base level of interest there. That's
definitely the idea. I didn't know. I already committed to taking the time off work before launching the Kickstarter. I really didn't know how that was going to go. I think that was a good bet. It looks like it's hopeful. I'm very hopeful at this point that we're going to get the goal. But I think for me, I'm going to work on the game regardless of whether the Kickstarter succeeds. And I knew that going into it. And it was just a question of, could I do the big production that I wanted to do with it, or would I have to do something small and simple and just get it out the door? So the Kickstarter's really opened it up to be the game I want to work on. And that's fantastic. But yeah, I think with Wave as well, they've been really flexible on getting things together for us. And if we need advice, or if we needed to make connections with certain people to get a certain aspect of development done, maybe even finding more people for the project, they're very well connected. So that's definitely helped us too.
Yeah, on the Kickstarter, you mentioned like you were just saying it then, the bigger production values that a Kickstarter meeting a Kickstarter goal can assist with, and you mentioned in your pitch that you with the Kickstarter goal, you'd be able to turn HarleQuest into a more fully fledged game. Essentially, like more feature packed, I think you described it. I just wondered if there's anything you'd be able to share with us about what that Kickstarter funding could bring to HarleQuest.
Sure. So, I mean, there's the amount of content in the sense of we would be able to do extra levels. So I always wanted to do between 5 and 7 types of area that the player can play in, and then have 5 to 7 floors for each of those areas with a boss at the end. So we'd be able to have a different play style for each boss, like totally unique way of dealing with that encounter. But also to be able to have each of those areas have a different process for doing the procedural generation for the dungeons. So if you're in the first dungeon, it's going to feel totally different to the next and different again to the next. So it adds a lot of variety. But also kind of more laterally, I wanted to add an endurance mode to the game. Endurance mode would be that the player is just dropped in a big room and enemies will just keep spawning and they'll get harder and harder, and you just have to deal with them for as long as you can and have a kind of kill score of how many you get through. So with the Kickstarter funds, we can do things like that, and as we're developing, if new ideas or opportunities come up, we will actually have the flexibility to say, that's cool, yes, let's put it in the game, instead of having to say, oh no, we have no budget, we have to just ignore all these great ideas. So that's really the position that we get to be in with it.
And I noted as well, Ross, that in your Kickstarter, you kind of mentioned that you have a roadmap of features thus far, and so that will help prevent you from from getting those eyes too wide and wanting to include something that's kind of too far out of that. Because I suppose one of the risks is getting too ambitious, right? But it seems that it's very well thought out, and you've got quite a way to go until your planned release date. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So I think it's always a balancing act with trying to make sure you have enough features to really do the idea justice, but you just don't keep piling on more and more as you go, thinking, oh, that would be great. So yeah, definitely going to be an element of finding that sweet spot. But yeah, for the planned release dates, because I'm working on the game 2 days a week, some part-time from a day job, it does mean that the release date's a bit further away with October next year. But all along the way, we're going to be making demos. I'll be putting demos out with new content that people can play with CDI files for their Dreamcasts, so they won't have to wait around to know what's going on with the game. And it's only when we finally get to that release with the physical product at the end that they'll get absolutely everything. But I think that'll help people who are excited about it stay excited and not feel like it's some distant point in the future.
Yeah, that's a really interesting interesting aspect of this that I think is quite different to how things were before, in the sense that, you know, you've got your Discord up and running and people can come in and ask you questions, and you know, you're able to post regular updates on the Kickstarter, and so people are just, you know, it's, as you say, it's a very transparent project, whereas before, I think in years gone by, it might just be the case that you hear someone says that they're working on something, and then before you know it, it's just kind of lands in your lap. But what's another interesting aspect of that is you're also going to be featured on a physical demo disc soon, are you not?
Yeah, so HarleQuest's endurance mode demo will be on Indie Sampler 2, the debug Indie Sampler. So getting the demo ready for the Kickstarter, Dan gave me a message saying, do you reckon you could get the demo ready by this date? And it was 2 weeks earlier than we needed for the Kickstarter demo. So I was like, right, let's roll up the sleeves, let's get this done. And we, I spent a weekend with like very late nights just getting extra features in. And then near the end, I thought, when people get this demo, they're not going to know how to play the game, so I have to add instructions. So when you start the game, there's like a pop-up box with some instructions, all very last minute.
Yeah.
But I hope that people are able to kind of get some idea of the experience from the demo. But yeah, we're very lucky to be featured on Debug Second Disc.
Yeah, and this demo is available to download as well for those who may not have ordered the demo from Wave, but also those who don't have GD drives in their Dreamcast at all, and they use ODEs and like Mode or GDEMU or other means like Dream Shell. I presume you can burn it onto a CDR. I've not tried that myself.
Yep, works on a CDR.
Excellent. So all the old school ISO zone dudes, you know, there you go, CDR, burn it onto that. And I've also got to note here, you do have a digital version available on the Kickstarter, which some games don't always have a digital version out the gate, but you do, which is excellent. So I think a lot of people will be happy about that. But I suppose talking about the other tiers that you've got going on the Kickstarter as well, you've got a collector's edition, which I'm sure our esteemed colleague Mike has already backed, because he is a lover of collector's editions for Dreamcast stuff. But I think probably the most interesting thing, actually, other than the collector's edition with all its various goodies that are included, is the developer's edition, where basically people who back this are granted full access to the game's source code, art files, audio files, and tools, is what you've said here. And I guess the idea with this is that you're allowing people to essentially mod the game or do you think maybe take it further than even modding it? Maybe using, I guess, the engine that's been created here to create maybe even something new. I don't know if you want to just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I was learning how to code, a big part of that was the Quake and Unreal modding scenes. And the fact that they had these games where you could come in and not just make new levels, but you could add your own code and you could make these totally different games from like these foundations that developers shared. And I thought it'd be really cool to have that for the Dreamcast, particularly because, as you said, there aren't that many 3D games yet. And there are other people doing really good work, like the Simulant guys, that I think will help the community a lot. So I thought, well, can I use HarleQuest to contribute to that as well? But the difficulty, of course, is because it's a commercial product, I don't want other people to be able to just take the game as is and then potentially sell it, or there are a few issues with it. So I thought, well, the best thing to do is just make it part of the product. If you buy or if you pledge for the developers edition during the Kickstarter, we'll be able to stay in touch with you because it's a very limited run, help you with your project, give some advice. And if you have any issues with the tools or with the code, you can stay in touch with us and keep that lifeline. I'd love to see people do their own non-commercial explorations of the platform and use HarleQuest as the foundation for that. And then if from that they decided that they wanted to do a commercial release of something, I'd love for them to get in touch and we can figure something out. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I really hope some people take you up on that offer, Ross. You'll probably aware that I have absolutely no idea about programming, but I would have thought it's quite different to just kind of being given access to some code and having no context or explanation or assistance. And so it sounds that like it could be a bit more productive. I mean, personally, I would say, this is obviously out there, really out there. But if someone wants to make an online version, that would be great. Don't add that to your roadmap, because otherwise we'll be talking to you in 5 years' time.
Oh, absolutely. And so my day job at Ninja Kiwi, a large part of that is doing real-time multiplayer systems and network systems. And HarleQuest is like, it's my chance to not do that for a while. So yeah, I'm gonna appreciate making a local-only game this time.
Very nice. Yeah, switch it up.
One of your potential stretch goals of 15,000 and then 20,000 would be for the Nintendo Switch, and then the 20,000 is for the PlayStation and the Xbox. Is that something you've looked into? So I guess because that I can imagine like that's a whole other process as well, porting this game to those systems too. I can imagine that's a big thing too.
Definitely. So I'm focusing on the Dreamcast first and foremost. If we're able to hit those stretch goals, that would be fantastic, because with the extra money from that, I would be able to potentially bring someone else in as well, just for the extra work of going to the other platforms. So that was my main thinking with those stretch goals. But I think I'm really keen on getting it on the Switch. I really hope we hit that first stretch goal so I can just go and do a Switch port, because I think that this type of game would feel just great on that handheld kind of form factor.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. For the collectors out there, there is a £25,000 stretch goal that will get vinyl figures of in-game characters added to the collector's edition. So I kind of want it to reach that one, to be honest, because that's
that would
awesome.
Be so cool. I really want to do vinyl toys.
I can imagine that would be incredible to actually like see that like realized. Obviously these are your characters, so yeah. That'd be amazing. So we're currently at the time of recording this, which is on the 8th of April. The Kickstarter is a very big £9,000 of the 11,250, and that's amazing. We've still got 22 days to go. That's 149 backers. How are you feeling, Ross? I can imagine that's pretty exciting that, we're getting there.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I had no idea going into it how popular it would be. And I think I was cautiously optimistic based on previous projects, seeing how well they did. But I was really blown away within the first few days of just everyone coming in. And I'm still cautiously optimistic that we'll hit our goal and we'll be able to do this justice. But yeah, I'm really curious. One of the things with the Kickstarter is backers have got in touch asking for multiple copies of some of the tiers. And I just hadn't considered that people would want more than one. So I'm in the process of tweaking some things to make that easier for people. And similarly, the developers edition sold out rapidly upon launching the campaign. So I've had to kind of release some more of those and think about, well, how many people can we do, give a good service to if they get those developers editions. So yeah, just keeping things ticking over now. And if anyone has any questions about the campaign or anything they'd like to talk to me about, I'm completely open. Just drop me a DM on the platform of your choice. I'm happy to talk about it.
When you say multiple copies, Ross, do you suspect that there are some folks who are hoping to, use your game to pay for their pension in 20, 30 years' time when they can sell their lovely sealed copy?
I would be honoured if someone thought that the game's going to be worth that much in that amount of time. I sincerely hope so. That would be awesome.
It'd be the highest honour.
Hopefully we're going to get that Kickstarter goal soon. So I suppose, what are the next so many months looking like for you, Ross? I mean, you mentioned you're showcasing HarleQuest at OLL Gaming Convention, which is in Norwich.
Debug are running the indie showcase. So at OLL, there'll be 2 Dreamcasts set up running HarleQuest. And if anyone wants to come over and try the game and have a chat with me, I'll be there all weekend. And once the Kickstarter campaign's finished, I'm probably not going to be going to any other events for a while because I'll just have my head down working on the game. So this is your chance to come and say hi.
Oh, excellent. Do you ever think about like the humble beginnings of Dungeon Ross and think like, wow, this has really come a long way,
Yeah, I think I'm so in the moment just now with what's going on. And I'm thinking about the near future of what we can do with the game and just what we're going to be able to achieve that I've not really had a chance to look back yet. But I think once the Kickstarter time period's finished and we know where we're at, I'll just take a big sigh and go have a celebratory drink somewhere, hopefully, and I'll be able to reminisce then.
I think you should go and have a double scoop nougat, really.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the people out there, Ross?
Just, I'd like to say thanks to everyone who's supported the campaign so far. It's really fantastic. And again, if you've got any questions at all, just get in touch.
It's been a pleasure to have Ross on the pod. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. And when it does come out, Ross, I will be bumping that CD in my 2005 Corsa. That is if it passes another MOT. We're yet to see.
Is there an easy way for people to find everything HarleQuest? You've got a website, right?
It's harle.quest.
That is an excellent URL, by the way.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of my vanity domain names. There's also ross.codes is my personal one.
That's amazing. So .quest is a domain.
I know, it's actually a top level domain name.
That's mad. That's amazing. and obviously, as you said, codes. Like, I swear there's just like top level domains for any word now. Like, it's amazing. But
yeah, I also have like a couple .coffee domain names.
.coffee. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And you're on social media as well.
I'm on Twitter, which is @HarleQuest. And I'm on Mastodon, which is also @harlequest.mastodon.social.
You're streaming as well.
Yeah, so I was regularly streaming earlier in the year, and then I got very busy working on the game. So I think now, once the campaign's finished, I'm going to start streaming again, probably once every 2 weeks. Cool. Just to answer any questions that people have and just give an update on where the game's at. Just live coding and warts and all, any mistakes that happen live.
Nice. That's really cool. And like we were saying before, it's good to allow people insight, I suppose. And we always love to see indies for the Dreamcast. So, any inspiration that you can impart is amazing, really.
You quickly come to realise that there's a lot of really super talented folks who are making games on the Dreamcast, and they all seem to know each other and help each other out. So I'm sure you've got some good. Well, you've already got Alistair, which is a good one.
Yeah, It's really good. We've also got like the Simulant guys and the community that's kind of surrounding that. Luke and Dave are both on Driving Strikers team as well. I've had a lot of discussions with those guys. There's a lot of overlap in the kind of problem space for making a 3D Dreamcast game. So it's good to try ideas with each other.
Nice. Okay, so at the time of recording, like I was saying earlier, we've got 22 days to go. So obviously, if everything you've heard today sounds exciting to you, and I'm sure when you check that Kickstarter out and view that gameplay footage, you'll feel exactly like me and Lozz and all the other guys in the Dreamcast Junkyard team felt about this game. It's looking to be a really awesome game. We're really excited to finally play it. But obviously, in the meantime, you can download that demo. Okay, so I suppose wrapping up, Lozz, where can people find you on the World Wide Web?
On the World Wide Web. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I am at lgoodchild_UK. But you can also find me writing occasionally on the Dreamcast Junkyard blog. And how about you, Lewis? Where can we find you?
I can be found on Twitter at LewisJFC. I've put stuff up on the blog occasionally. I just had a piece about Radigy, like a really bad Radigy spin-off that I just put up. There's a few other articles that have gone up there recently from people like Brian and Mike and yourself, Lozz, about the Daytona USA coming back online, which is another exciting thing happening in the Dreamcast community. And as for the Dreamcast Junkyard itself, you can find us on Twitter. That's at the DC Junkyard. The website is thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. We have a Discord, which you can find on the website. Just find the little icon on there. Same for the Facebook and the Facebook group. And we do have a means to donate. If you want to help us with hosting costs or website hosting costs, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/DC Junkyard. So I just want to say it's been really awesome to have you on, Ross, and as I'm sure you can hear, we're very excited for your game and the Kickstarter. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm a big fan, so I really appreciate it.
Amazing. It's come full circle. Yeah. Okay, so I've not really hosted one of these for a long time, so I can't actually remember what I'm supposed to say at the end, but keep dreaming, I suppose. Keep
dreaming. Yeah. You say do, and you wait for the guest to say do.
Yeah, the Nardwuar thing, yeah. I'm not going to make Ross do that, but yeah. Thanks for joining us for another episode, everyone, and thanks for listening. Take care.
Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now.